topic of a shir tonight is going to be a Yid has a balabatish on the world. So they bring in this Sefer, Torah Segula, from a Rebbe Sikha in Nun Beis, Parshas Vayigash. Rebbe was speaking that in different times, different tzaddikim, they was in charge of a certain things in a certain countries. Like for example, Yehuda was in charge. Yehuda was a Jewish king, and Mordechai was in Persia, in charge of some things, and so on and so forth. Different tzaddikim throughout different generations. But the problem was that Jews, they wouldn't have a full rulership. Rulership. They wouldn't have a full rulership, which means that it still would be some kind of a decrease which would block a Jewish nation of performing all the mitzvahs or being able to fulfill all the Torah. And there was certain problems. But nevertheless, the Rebbe says that nowadays, if you're looking in the world, and specifically here in the United States, which is Malchus Shel Chesed, as he called it, so that country allows the Jews to do whatever Torah says in the full potential of it. And not just in this country, he says, but also in different types of countries. And on top of that, also in the countries where would be a decrease totally against the Torah and mitzvahs. Nowadays, you can see that the situation is complete disaster. The situation turns from upside down. And even in countries like Russia and Ukraine, there are people who keep in Torah and mitzvahs and on an open way. And as there was a story that there was this shliach, and he came to a certain city, and he knew somebody in a parliament, like parliament of that city. And there was some lady who she was working in an office, and he put a mezuzah there. And then some guy, like the guy who was in charge of that office, he was like a mayor of that city, and he was not a Jew, but he saw that after mezuzah was there, so his like the whole thing in the office started to get. He saw that there was a success and blessing, like something out of a mind, and he saw that there was a changes. And he advertised that thing to other mayors, like Jewish mayors in different cities. And there is another story that how for example, like in Kiev, I remember it was like 7 years ago, and in a shul there are a lot of big figures, like big businessmen and big people who are in a parliament. They coming to a shul for a Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And in the shul, they selling aliyahs, and those people are buying aliyahs for big amounts of money, right? That, for example, like that was 7 years ago. There was a guy who bought Maftir Yoina, the third aliyah on Mincha on Yom Kippur, which is like special aliyah, as they always say. Like each aliyah is special, each aliyah is a big zechut, big merit for the parnasa, whatever you want, for the this, that. And he put $500,000 for that. And there was actually another guy who also was like, there was a battle. He also said, I also gonna put, there was battling, there was going up, and the guy said, I'm putting $500,000. And another guy also said $500,000. So they did a 2 million. And yeah, people, there are always, even that you cannot add aliyahs, but okay, so you'll do 2 million. But there are ways, but where it shows you that even in such countries which would be totally against the Judaism, but nevertheless the people are, and that's people who are part of a parliament, and they're becoming frum, and they start keeping Torah and mitzvahs, they keep kashrus and the Shabbos, and a lot of them, they also using their money for holy purposes. Now, afterwards, the point is like this, that as I point out a lot of times, that one of the main avoidance in our generation is to use the gashmius, to use the material things of this world for a spiritual needs, for a spiritual purposes. And as we see that Jews, if we open our eyes, so the Jews, they have a power, and they are the ones who are ruling the world. Because if you're gonna check out in different countries, in this parliament, that country, that country, even that maybe not the presidents of a lot of countries, so many countries are Jews, but nevertheless there are presidents of countries who are Jews, and there are a bunch of people in different parliaments in different countries who are Jews. And a lot of those people, little by little, they getting more and more religious, and they are like working hard in order to explain to those people how to use money, which they are in charge of money, and obviously, as we know, a statement as the money talks, and they are so explaining to those people how to use this money properly, because that's the also a big big point in bringing the Geula, that to use money properly, and eventually Geula gonna come. For example, there was another story that a story was I just heard a story was like this, that it was this guy in LA, and he was very rich, and he was getting older, and he was like waiting for a kid, and then he had a girl. So then she was growing up, and she eventually she grew up and she got married. And this guy, he was Jewish, he was not religious, and she was going through. She was in labor, or what it's called, labor, and she was about to give a but doctor said that there was a problem, and the problem was such a thing that it was affecting also her and her baby, and nobody knew what to do. There was a need to do like additional operation, and it was very scary thing, and nobody was like doctors was very afraid, and he didn't knew what to do, and whatever. So he had somebody who advised him to go to the Rebbe, and he said, the Rebbe, like I have like all the money in the world, I could call the best doctors, were the Rebbe gonna help me out? But nevertheless, his wife told him, like, you have to go. There is a chance that maybe he's gonna give you some kind of advice. You have to go. So he went, and when he came to Rebbe and he told him this situation, so Rebbe told him Shabbos. You have to take upon yourself to keep Shabbos, and Brocha gonna come. She's gonna become healthy. And he said to Rebbe, listen, Rebbe, I could give you some money, like I could give you 10,000, but it's something I cannot do. I'm a big businessman. I have business here and there. I cannot just stop the whole thing. Like for Shabbos, I am not going to be able to do it. And the Rebbe told him Shabbos, and then the guy was going up and up in price, and he said 100,000. This, but Rebbe said, I don't need your money. Shabbos. That's what I need from you. You want that the daughter should get Shabbos. Okay, so the guy came back home to LA, and he basically said to wife that nothing gonna work out. He didn't tell me anything. This, that. So the wife said, "What do you mean? Like, what are you doing? He didn't tell you anything. So he told me like I should keep Shabbos, but that's impossible." So she told him, "What do you mean? How is it like?" If that's what he told you, that's what you have to do. But he said, I have so much things, business, how is gonna go, Shabbos. So she told him, I think that I understand what a Rebbe meant, that Shabbos, and like he didn't want to go with you, like to take some money from you, Shabbos, which means like this, which means that now this guy, he's old, and he has all this type of properties and all this type of businesses and everything. All his purpose was like for the kids, to give it over to the future generation, to leave it over as an inheritance for somebody who's coming after him. And now his wife saying that now we old, we're not gonna have kids anymore. And now, if you're not gonna do that, so your daughter, like Hashem, she's just gonna die, and that's it. And you're not gonna have, even that you're gonna continue your business, and you're gonna have more and more profit, but you're not gonna have somebody to give it over to. And then he obviously did the Shabbos, and everything became great. Like she had a daughter, and like he gave them over the whole thing. So that's the message. The message is that we should use the money properly. And whatever person, sometimes he has this friend, that friend, there's people who are also having money, but sometimes a Jew, that's where he has money, that's the one thing, but sometimes a Jew doesn't know how to use it properly, how to use it according to Torah and Mitzvot. For example, we saw also Moshe, right? Remember that there was this businessman in Odessa, and in Ukraine, and he also like very rich guy, and he was like doing some businesses also in Eretz Yisrael, and he became a religious, started to keep like a kasher, Torah, mitzvah, Shabbos, And he said that whatever he do in monetary things, like when he do business, he comes to Rabbi and he asks him what is the allowed thing to do, Al Pi Torah, and what he cannot do. Why? Because he wants that also in his business he should be attached to Hashem, and he should do whatever Hashem wants from him. So Be'ezer Hashem, in that merit, in using money properly and advises it for our friends or whoever we know, it should bring the Geula, and we should see with our own eyes how it's all happening. Amen.
Amen.